So today we are going to start looking at another grand generalization from school geometry or three-dimensional geometry. This is inner product spaces or Hilbert spaces. As I said, the nice property of three-dimensional world or the geometry that we study, Euclidean geometry that we study, is orthogonality between two vectors. If you have perpendicular vectors, we can define models very conveniently. We can define vectors very conveniently. So there are many advantages of Pythagoras theorem, and we would like it to hold in a general space which consists of functions, which consist of polynomials and so on. So we have to come up with new structure on a vector space which is equivalent to what you have available in 3 dimensions, and then try to see to it that the properties that are important in 3 dimensions or in school geometry are also preserved in these newly defined vector spaces. So now we impose one more structure. See, till now we started by defining norms, but just length or norm was not enough. It was helpful in defining generalizing the ideas of convergence to a limit and so on, but we need something more. We need angles. So remember two things. What I want to generalize. I want to generalize the so-called dot product. If my x is nothing but R3, then if I am given any two vectors x and y that belong to x, then what I do is I construct unit vector as x by 2 norm of x and y cap, which is also unit vector y by 2 norm of y. So this is 2 norm. X2 norm is x transpose x raised to half. Okay, we construct two vectors which are unit vectors in direction of x and y, and then if I want to find out angle between x and y, I have to take a dot product between. So a fundamental result that we have is cos theta. Cos theta is equal to x cap transpose y cap. A fundamental result that I have is x cap transpose y cap is equal to cos theta, angle between them. I want this particular idea to be generalized in a vector space. Now what we know from trigonometry is that cos theta is always bounded between plus and minus 1. Okay, so another way of stating this equality is to say that mod cos theta is less than or equal to 1, or this also means that in 3 dimensions x divided by norm x this is another way of writing the same inequality. Cos theta is always less than 1. So x transpose, so I can see this is a scalar and this is also a scalar, right? So I can write this as mod of x transpose y is always less than or equal to right. And then what was important property of that we said we want to have is orthogonality. So when x is perpendicular to y, okay, when x is perpendicular to y, x transpose y is equal to 0. This was very important for us. This was very important for us. We extensively used orthogonality. We use orthogonal basis. For example, the most well known orthogonal basis is IJK unit vectors perpendicular along the coordinate direction. So orthogonality is a very, very important property, we want it. Okay, so I want to now come up with generalization of these results in a vector space. That is my aim. So I am going to define a new entity called inner product. I am given a vector space X together with a function called inner product. So I am given a vector space, I am given a vector space X and a function which is defined on X cross X, okay, X cross X to the field F. So given xy that belong to X, I am going to define inner product X inner product Y. This is the notation that we are going to use throughout the course. X inner product Y is defined from X cross X to. So what are the axioms that govern this definition? There are 4 axioms. There are certain properties which are generic to inner product in 3 dimensions, which I want to now generalize and come up with a generalized definition, which will in a special case would be this dot product, which you know in 3 dimensions. So my first axiom is well I may in when I am working with vector spaces, in many situations I have to work with complex valued functions or complex valued vectors. So what this says is that if I change the order, if I take inner product of X with Y, okay, then and if I change the order, what I get is the complex conjugate, okay. So typically the field that we are going to work with is R or C, set of complex numbers. So well, if you are working with real valued vectors or real valued functions, then this is very obvious. If I change the order, if I make X transpose or Y transpose X, I am going to get the same value, okay. With complex numbers you get a complex conjugate, that is important. The second property I want the inner product to observe is that if I am given any 3 vectors, any X, Y and Z that belong to X, so this inner product that we define should distribute over vector addition. So if I take X plus Y and take inner product with Z, then that is same as adding these 2 inner products, okay, X with Z and Y with Z, okay. That is the second important property of a function to qualify as an inner product, okay. So what is the third important property? The third important property is that if I take a scalar lambda, and multiply it with x, then this is same as lambda bar but the way it happens with the second element and the first element is different in the inner product. Well, if you are working with real numbers, these both results are same because lambda bar is equal to lambda. Okay. So if you are working with complex numbers, you need to separate these two equalities. So if I take the first vector multiplied by lambda, then it is same thing as multiplying inner product of x and y with lambda bar, that is complex conjugate of lambda. Okay. And if I take the second vector multiplied by, there is y if I take and multiply by lambda, then it is same as, okay, lambda times. So this is another essential property, or this is an axiom that defines a function to be inner product. I want to maintain this because we have to generalize a few things, so I want to draw parallels. So let this be there for some time. What is the last axiom? So the last axiom is, or the fourth axiom is, if I take inner product with, okay, let's look at here. Let's look at this property. If I take inner product of a vector x with itself, what do I get? I get 2 norm in three dimensions. What is 2 norm? 2 norm is if x1, x2, x3 are 3 components, x1 square plus x2 square plus x3 square whole to the power half. Okay, so that is, so this particular property is quite important in light of generalizing this. So this should always be greater than or equal to 0, and x and the inner product of x with itself should be 0 only if x is 0. This is also very, very important here, right? In 3 dimensions, only inner product of x will be equal to 0, x transpose x will be 0 only if it is origin. The same property is being generalized here. Okay. In fact, this is what helps us in defining a norm which is tied up with an inner product. Okay, a norm which is tied up with an inner product. A norm which is tied up with an inner product plays very, very important role in numerical analysis because this is a norm which comes up, which comes with a definition of angle. Okay, that is why 2 norm is something which is very, very often used in applied mathematics. Okay. Okay, so now let's start looking at can we define there in 3 dimensions. We defined a norm using inner product. Can I do it here in a general vector space? Okay, so I said any function that obeys these 4 axioms qualifies to be an inner product. Qualifies to be an inner product. So it is not necessary that that we have to we have only one particular way of defining inner product. We have a generic way of coming up with a definition of inner product that is suitable to our application. Okay, what I mean by this will become clear as we go along. Okay, so let me define some examples of inner products, which are even on R3. I will show you that there are different ways of defining inner products on 3 dimensions. But before that, let me just state what is a Hilbert space. Okay, sometime back in the last lecture, you heard about Banach spaces. What are Banach spaces? Complete nonlinear spaces. So what happens in complete spaces? Every Cauchy sequence is convergent in the space, right? So Hilbert space a complete inner product space is called as a Hilbert space. It's this name is given after a great mathematician Hilbert, who laid foundations of functional analysis. Okay, so now some examples of inner products. My first example is to show that there is no unique way of defining inner product in 3 dimensions also. Okay, let me take my X as R3. Okay, now, well, when you say R3, the field is R. I am not going to write it every time, just to keep the things simple. I am going to define an inner product on this now, which is different from what we have done earlier, you know, just X transpose X. Okay, I am given, so let W be a positive definite matrix So now we define an inner product using this positive definite matrix W. So my inner product for any 2 vectors x, y that belong to R3. So I have this x and y belong to R3, and x inner product y, I am going to give a little subscript here W, okay, is going to be defined as x transpose W y. A simplest example of W would be a diagonal matrix. Okay, see, for example, I can simplest example of W would be, you know, matrix which is 100, 0.1 and 1000, 0, 0, 0. Okay, now you might ask me why do you want to define some funny matrix W and then call it as an inner product? Where is it useful? Let us say I am working with a reactor, okay, and my x is a vector that consists of, say, temperature, pressure and concentration, fractional. Okay, so this is in 10s and 20s, let us say degree centigrade temperature. Pressure, let us say, is you know, defined in pascals, megapascals, so it is in 10 to the power 5 something. Here you know, x is in fractions. Okay, if I use my good old way of defining inner product or length, I have trouble, because you know, fraction, this mole fraction is always going to be a small number, square of it is going to be a smaller number. Okay, so many times I need to work with scaled variables. Okay, I need to work with scaled variables. At such times it is useful to have an inner product definition which normalizes the unit differences between different variables. Okay, so I am not just defining this W matrix just like that, there is a purpose behind this, and there are many situations where you will hit into this kind of normalization business, where you have to use a matrix W. Now let's see whether this particular inner product satisfies properties that are specified. What is the first property? Just go back and look at your. So first property is, my first property is that x y should be y x bar, but we are not working with complex numbers. We are not working with complex numbers. So since we are not working with complex numbers, in this particular case it is, if I interchange, it should not matter, right? So this I don't have to prove to you that x transpose wy is same as y transpose wx. Why this is true? Is this always true? I need one more property. I have missed out something here. Oh no, I just said it's a positive definite matrix. I need something more. No. Yes. So I need this matrix W to be positive definite, and also this W has to be symmetric. W is equal to W transpose. This should be symmetric, otherwise this doesn't hold. Okay, otherwise this doesn't hold. So this matrix being positive definite is not sufficient. It should be a symmetric positive definite matrix. Okay, then what will happen if I take X transpose WY transpose, that is Y transpose W transpose X, which is Y transpose WX, because W transpose is equal to W. Okay, so symmetry is very, very important. Okay, symmetry is very, very important. So I need a positive definite matrix and a symmetric matrix. Okay, what next? Lambda times X. What will happen? What is the next property? I think X plus Y, the second property, distribution, is very obvious. You don't have to prove this. X plus Y, Z is equal to X plus Y transpose WZ, which is nothing but XZ plus YZ. I think this is just, it just follows, very simple. What is the third thing? If I multiply one of the vectors by a scalar, inner product should get multiplied by, now we don't have to do mod here, there is no bar here, we just have to take the scalar out because we are working with real numbers. So the third property is very, very obvious, that is lambda times X Y is lambda X transpose WY, which is lambda X transpose WY. Okay, I don't have to take complex conjugate because we are working with real numbers. What about the fourth property? Does it hold? X transpose WX, if I take inner product of a vector with itself, what is the meaning of positive definiteness? All the eigenvalues are greater than 0. There is no 0 eigenvalue, all the eigenvalues are greater than 0. Okay, the definition of positive definiteness itself means this is the definition of positive definiteness. Okay, a matrix is positive definite. The fundamental definition of positive definiteness is that if X transpose WX is always greater than 0 if X is not equal to 0. If X is equal to 0, it will be equal to 0. So only vector that will give you X transpose WX equal to 0 is 0 vector. That's what we wanted, right? All 4 axioms are satisfied. So this is another way of defining inner product on 3 dimensions. These kind of inner products we very, very routinely use in numerical methods because we need to do scaling of variables. X will consist of pressures, temperatures, concentrations, all kinds of variables which have different units, and then if you want to find out length of such a vector, you cannot just say x1 square plus x2 square plus x3 square. You need to multiply it by a suitable weighting matrix. That's why you need this. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I said that W has to be positive definite and symmetric. Symmetric is important. X transpose WY will be symmetric, no? So just positive definiteness is not enough, we need symmetry also. So symmetric positive definite matrix is important, and then Yeah. Lambda bar is complex conjugate, but we are working right now with real numbers, so complex conjugate will be the real number itself. There is no. Okay, so this I can very easily change to my second example where R, you talk with Rn. I could have talked with Rn, and the same thing would hold. Okay, I have a symmetric positive definite matrix. Okay, I have a symmetric positive definite matrix, and then I can define a norm, which is, I can define an inner product, which is using any symmetric positive definite matrix, which is n cross n, which will give me all the properties that I need for defining inner product. Okay, we still haven't established the connection between the last axiom and the norm. I have been just taking, I am just saying that, well, it's related to the inner product. Inner product gives you a norm which is here, but actually we need to see that connection. Okay, we need to see that connection. So I'll give one or two examples and move to proving that actually inner product in a general space defines a norm. Just like in 3 dimensions, x transpose x gives you a norm. Okay, you'll also get a norm defined through inner product. Okay, before doing that, let me give you one or two more examples of inner product spaces. So my second example would be Rn, or I can easily move to Cn, a complex valued n tuple, and so on, where the matrix there should be Hermitian, not symmetric positive, it should be Hermitian. Okay, okay, but moving on from finite dimensional spaces, let me give you third example. So set of square integrable functions. Over an interval AB, set of square integrable functions over an interval AB. You have come across this kind of a set when you worked with Fourier series expansions. Okay, now you will soon realize what are the connections. So if I am given any two functions, say ft and gt, that belong to x, then I can define an inner product between ft and gt as integral a to b set of all square integrable functions. Okay, so integral over a to b. Typically when you study Fourier series in your undergraduate, we look at a b that corresponds to 0 to 2 pi, or we look at a b that correspond to minus pi to pi. You remember something like this? When you do Fourier series expansion, you take sine theta or sine t into ft dt, integral sine t ft dt, that is actually inner product. Okay, and you can just check whether all four axioms are satisfied. Let's look at first axiom. What is the first axiom? If I interchange f and g, will the integral be different? So first axiom is satisfied. If I multiply ft by some lambda, what will happen to the integral? It will be lambda times, right? Second property is satisfied. What about distribution? If I take f plus g inner product with some ht, very obvious, right? The third property, if I take ft plus gt inner product with ht, this will be integral a to b ft plus gt which is same as integral a to b Everyone with me on this? Everyone with me on this? So the third axiom is satisfied. What about the fourth axiom? If I take inner product of a function f with itself, what will happen? Will it always be a positive number? Why? So my fourth axiom is integral of ft with ft. This is nothing but integral a to b ft square dt, okay, which is always greater than 0, okay, if ft is not a 0 function. Am I correct? If ft has even one non-zero value in interval a to b, ft square will be positive, ft square dt will be positive. So ft, as long as this will be 0, this will be 0 when f is 0 everywhere on ab. If f has non-zero values, this integral, the summation of this integral will always be non-zero, okay. So all the four properties that you need for an inner product space or inner product to be defined are satisfied, okay. I could further modify this inner product. See, just like from x transpose x, I said x transpose wx, where w is a symmetric positive definite matrix, is also inner product. I could expand this definition by putting a positive weighting function here. So I can have another definition. My fourth example would be I'll take a weighting function wt ft gt dt, okay. Wt is strictly greater than 0 on Wt is strictly greater than 0 is a positive function. Wt is a positive function. It has only positive values in the interval AB. This is my interval AB on which inner product is defined, on which the space is defined, okay. Just like we could use a positive definite symmetric matrix there, if I modify my definition of inner product by multiplying by a positive weighting function, that also satisfies the inner product. And these kind of weighting functions we are going to hit upon soon when we come up with different ways of defining inner product on set of continuous functions which are square integrable. We will also come up with these kind of inner products. You will need them when you solve partial differential equations. So boundary value problems when you solve in the mathematical methods course, okay. So there are different ways of defining inner products, yet we have to establish two major connections. One is with the angle and other is with the norm, okay. So let me start preparing for this. I need to prove an inequality. Which is essence, which exactly captures this part. In order to show that an inner product defines a norm, I need to prove an inequality called as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, and this inequality will help us to come up with a connection between inner product and the so-called 2 norm, okay. This is 2 norm and we want a connection to be established in a general Okay, so so what all things that you need for a function to be a norm? When do you call a function to be a norm? What are the three axioms? Okay, so if one is norm x is greater than 0 if x is not equal to 0, huh? And this is equal to 0 if x is equal to 0. Okay, that is the first axiom. Okay, what is my candidate norm definition? My candidate norm definition is I want to use in the inner product space, I want to define a norm. Actually, we will call it 2 norm, but right now, okay, let's keep calling it 2 norm here. So 2 norm here is I want to say x raised to half. That's what I want to do, x transpose x. Okay, this is my candidate function. Now, does this follow the first axiom for norm? Does it follow? From the definition of the very definition it will follow, nothing to worry. Okay, what is the second thing about norm? Scalar multiplication. So if I take alpha times x, then that is equal to mod alpha norm x. What about this? Does it follow? Okay, let me see. Alpha x. What is this equal to? Alpha bar alpha x, right? First element alpha bar, second element alpha. Okay, so which is mod alpha square x, right? So alpha x raised to half is equal to mod alpha x raised to half. We have proved whatever we wanted. So far so good. Okay, now comes the third problem. What is the third thing? Triangle inequality. Okay, now triangle inequality is where we need this to be generalized. Okay, you cannot go to triangle inequality unless you generalize this result in inner product spaces. And here we need a little bit of work. Okay, I am going to prove this on the board. Why this defines an inner product? Why this inner product defines a norm, and how you can generalize this result. This result in the inner product space is called as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. So what is it that I want to do? I want to generalize this particular result from 3 dimensions. Okay, except here it is written x transpose y. I want to arrive at mod of x y is less than or equal to norm x. If I take inner product of any 2 vectors x y, its absolute value is less than. Okay, this is what I want to show in any inner product space. Okay, that is generalization of the result cos theta is always less than 1. Okay, and then with that I will move to triangle inequality, because I have to establish triangle inequality to come up with. Okay, so how do I do that? Now let us first look at a situation where y is equal to 0 vector. If y is equal to 0 vector, does this hold always? Yeah, because inner product with 0 will give you 0. 0 is less than or equal to 0, no problem. Okay. So if y is equal to 0, so we don't want to look at a trivial case, 0 vector case. Okay. Now to prove this inequality, now I am going to play a trick. Okay. So let lambda be a scalar, non-zero scalar, such that I am going to take a vector x minus lambda y and take inner product of x minus lambda y with itself. Everyone with me on this? Lambda is any arbitrary scalar. Okay. So does this hold for any non-zero lambda? This inequality holds for n. Why? Inner product of a vector with itself is always greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So this always holds for any lambda not equal to 0, or any lambda for that matter, y not equal to any lambda, it is holds. Fine, it holds for any lambda. So what is this? What is this quantity on the left hand side? Can you expand this? So this will be x inner product x. I am taking first with first, then x inner product lambda x y minus lambda bar y x. Look carefully. Lambda times lambda and x distribution. I am using the distribution property. Okay, plus everyone with me on this? I have just expanded the right hand side. Okay, this also of course has to be greater than 0. This is x inner product x, always greater than 0. Mod lambda square y inner product y, always greater than 0. Now I have two quantities in between. Okay, x and y inner product x. Okay. So let us preserve this part here because this is what we are generalizing. Okay, so this holds for any lambda, am I correct? That inequality which we proved there holds for any lambda. So I am going to pick one specific lambda now. Okay, I am going to pick one specific lambda. Inner product is a scalar, ratio of two scalars. Okay, this is y is not 0, so y is not 0. So since y is not 0, this is a positive number. Okay, and this lambda is a valid lambda. So this should hold for this lambda also. Okay, for this particular lambda. What is lambda bar? Is that right? I just used the first property. Okay. Now I am going to substitute this lambda and this lambda bar in the inequality that we developed earlier. Okay. So so using these lambda and lambda bar, I have 0 greater than x inner product x. Okay, before that let's do a little bit of work. So this implies that minus lambda x inner product y minus lambda bar y inner product x, this is equal to if I just substitute this, lambda and lambda bar, okay, then what I'll get is that this is nothing but 2 times x y y x just check. What is lambda? Yx. I am substituting in the first thing there, xy, right? And what is lambda bar? Xy, but there it comes yx, right? Just algebraic jugglery. Okay. This is equal to 2 times, well, minus is here, of course. Minus sign will persist. So this is equal to minus 2 times x inner product y, x inner product y bar, right? Y inner product y. Okay, I'll move on to here now. Is everyone with me on that? Okay, so this is equal to minus 2 mod okay, minus 2 mod. Now, so this quantity here can be now replaced by our new value. Okay, so I get 0 greater than x minus 2 and our lambda is if I substitute for lambda square, where lambda square would be if I substitute for lambda square, it would be this, and then finally the inequality that I get is, I finally get an equality which is 0 greater than x minus okay. So this minus this is always positive, and I am just doing algebraic jugglery now. There is nothing specific. If you are not followed right now, just go through meticulously through the notes. You will see the steps, just substitutions. Okay, I have just eliminated by, see, this is a scalar, so this square this will cancel with this square, and then you can do the jugglery. It's not so difficult. Okay, so what does this imply? This implies that the above thing implies that mod of x y is less than or equal to x raised to half y raised to half. This is, I take this on the left hand side and take the square root. See, this is square of this inner product of x and y, right? I take this quantity on left hand side because see this is greater than this, right? Otherwise this cannot be greater than 0, right? And then I am just doing multiplication. Why I have brought it on this side? I have just omitted one in between step. Everyone clear about this? No problems? Okay. So now, so what is this? What is this? This inequality is same as this results in 3 dimensions, which we know. No difference. No? X dot product y, mod of that is always less than this, which is nothing but cos theta less than 1. Okay. So I have proved an inequality which is called as Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. I have proved an inequality called Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, and this helps us to prove the triangle inequality. How will you prove triangle inequality now? What is triangle inequality? So triangle inequality should be norm. So we want to prove x plus y 2 or x plus y is less than or equal to norm x plus norm y. We want to prove this inequality finally, and I want to use this. I want to use this result. This is Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. This is generalization of this result. Okay. Well, once I declare x transpose x to be norm of x, I can actually even move to this inequality, because this is a scalar. I can divide, take it inside, and so on. We'll move to that little later. In the next class, we'll start from this inequality, Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, and move on to proving triangle inequality. Once we prove triangle inequality, we are done. Okay. Once we prove triangle inequality, we have shown that inner product defines a norm. 3 axioms of norm. 2 of them we already proved. The third one was triangle inequality. To prove triangle inequality, we need Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. But Cauchy-Schwarz inequality not only helps you to prove triangle inequality, it also gives you a way of generalizing definition of angle. Okay, it will also give you a way of generalizing definition. So you will be able to define orthogonal vectors in any inner product space. These vectors could be 2 functions like sine and cos. Okay, or these vectors could be 2 polynomials. We will talk about orthogonal polynomials. Why do we talk about orthogonal polynomials? Why do we talk about orthogonal functions? They are very useful when you do mathematics, applied mathematics. But why were they called orthogonal? Why were they called orthonormal or whatever? Okay, so those questions will get answered if you understand this basis. That's why I am doing all these proofs. Okay, so let's in the next class we'll move on to triangle inequality and then more properties of inner product spaces. We'll see that the famous Pythagoras theorem, which you study in your 8th grade, also holds in any of these inner product spaces. What a relief! You can work with orthogonal vectors. Okay.